Name's Kei Sugaoka. I was a physics engineering aide, helping out with Operation Physics. Consisted of a manager and physicist. I worked with two physicists and an engineer, and they were in charge of the core reloads. I think we had an outage every 2 weeks. We used to test fuel. We used to irradiate cobalt. They used to do medical isotopes. It was, I think, one of only two types of test reactors like that in the world at that time. I think there was one in Canada, and we had one there at Vallecita's. He called them troublemakers or something, rebel rousers. One was white, two were white, and two were black. And they didn't like the black guys. Racism definitely was there. Between 98, since I was laid off, he was eventually promoted to president. I mean, there's tons of scandalous things with GE down there. They had a general manager, I remember. I'm going to write about that. I have a service information letter, and the technical writer was a lady. Her name was Beth McAllister. She had an office at Vallecita's. She worked in the materials department. She's on the Wall of Fame of engineers for GE. Very attractive lady, you know. And I heard from somebody else that she walked into some GM's office. He said something like, next thing you come in here with your clothes off or something like that. She went and got a real good lawyer and sued him. She was driving a Grand Am. Next thing I knew, she was driving a nice, beautiful Beamer. And she went to work for KLA TEPCO, too. I don't know if she's still there, too, right now in Milpitas, KLA TEPCO.
So they have an atmosphere, it appears that...
Rotten. And I don't want to talk like this about General Electric in general. They have, they're huge. Aircraft, medical systems. I am focusing just on GE nuclear. Because I can't talk for the rest of GE.
But was this the case in the United States, too, or just in Japan?
Oh, God, there's so many of them. I can't remember them all, Well, I got them down. I've been on a bridge when there's an earthquake. We were changing out control rod blades at Tokai one year, and then I'll never forget it. I'm standing on the bridge, and I hear the ventilation shaft. Just the shrill of the ventilation is a sound I'll never forget. And the QC guy, he's looking down in the water going, whoa, something's wrong. He jumped off the bridge, out of the cab. There's a cab that moves back and forth off a bridge. And then the guy running was actually the operator. I was a spotter in the back of the bridge. He jumped out of there, and this other guy, the black guy, he dropped the camera. And the head guy, the head cheese, he was up on the refueling floor. He was scared the most. He started running. I don't know where he's going to go. There's RP insulation. There's hardly any room on that Tokai refueling floor. You're not supposed to take the elevators, and trying to find your way down through the emergency exits off that floor would have been a mess. So I remember that. The water almost slapped out of the core. So I stood right there. The bridge goes across the core of the water, yeah.
And the water almost slapped out?
Almost slapped out, like a wave. Whoop! And I've heard from others, I think, water did kind of slap out on floors during earthquakes. Talking to another friend of mine, he was up at Fuku doing a job,
But that's never reported. That's the first time. You never hear about what happens at
Well, you're not supposed to talk about things like that. It's in Japan Times, I think, 2004. My friend Lorraine wrote about it in Japan Times. She put down the guy's name, but they didn't put the guy's name. That was...
What was his name?
Well, his name was Junji Tanaka. He should have been fired, too. He was the head cheese at Tokai. Tokai was operated by JAPC, Japan Atomic Power Company, not TEPCO. And he was scared. He told us to go back to work. He says, okay, let's go back to work. And I said, hey, JT, don't you think you got to call the control room? Ask if everything's okay? He's the top dog, too. I had to tell him, And then we looked down into the core, and I says, we can't see anything. It shook up the core so much, any debris or or stuff, our visibility went to hell. So now you got to wait for the reactor water cleanup pumps to clean it up so we have visibility to do our work. So we ended up spending the rest of the night in the office, and all night long, aftershocks. Well, I spent from August of 73 to February 76 at the test reactor, gaining some experience. I volunteered for some jobs there at the test reactor, so I got experience there, and I knew how a nuclear reactor plant worked. I just basically worked there 2.5 years. I went to school in engineering classes. That unit at that time, there was only about 14, maybe 16, 18, 20, somewhere in there. And maybe they had a few temps. It wasn't really that big of a group, and I tried transferring a few times, and I think the supervisor didn't like some of his employees, and he knew I was friends with them, so it was the old guilt by association, We were not going to hire him. He knows these guys, and we don't like these guys. I knew about the traveling group. It was called Reactor RNSS, Radiological Special Services Group, founded by Vince Clement and Ed Vinicor. I had an engineering background, so basically my job was pretty easy, actually. All I did was basically fill out those Fortran sheets. I did a lot of that, while the other guys did the figuring out the core loads and stuff. I read a few things in the newspaper. Some guy out of Pasadena, Texas, he was working on the turbine building, I guess. He went on television. Cut his foot, I guess, running out of the plant, He didn't speak much English. He said something about, I know when they said get out, the whatever motions, let's get out. He got out of there as fast as he can. GE was there too. GE will not publicize it. One of the guys I trained, he was in charge of the job. They just finished a shroud replacement job, Unit 4. That's why Unit 4 has all the fuel in the fuel pool. There's no fuel in the core. It was all removed prior to the shroud replacement job. As soon as the replacement job was finished, the earthquake happened. So they they got out of there as fast as they could, I guess. Got their stuff at a hotel kind of close to the train station in a town called Tomioka, and they went up east further into the hills, waited in the parking lot, and they came back down, got the rest of their stuff, made their way on whatever road they can towards the airport. And I guess they ran out of gas, and the GE Tokyo office sent the bus down and got them to the airport and out of there. Not a word from GE about that. You see anything in the paper about that? No. I know it happened because I've got buddies that still work for GE. Well, they put them in what they call dry cask storage nowadays. There is no permanent place. That's one of the things, there's statements I make out there like, I support nuclear power. Well, I only support nuclear power because we need electricity. I don't believe all the other methods, whether it's solar or whatever, can supply what we need and the world needs. But what I'm definitely against is we have never solved the waste problem. We have never solved the spent fuel problem. All we do is spend a lot of money for these casks. The last company I worked for is called Holtec International out of Marlton, New Jersey. They are the world's leaders of building casks. They are making tons of money. Dad, I get these dreams sometimes that I'm in earthquakes, So I thought I was having a dream. I came out of my little hotel, had to walk the stairs, and I was livid because they had lost power a month or two earlier in the summer. In the middle of summer, it's hot. Some big transmission line, something happened to it between the north and south. Well, I thought it was something like that happened again. I came downstairs. What happened? We lose power again? The elevator ain't working? I was kind of livid. And they looked at me and says, we just had an earthquake. And I says, huh? I walked out the door and I saw everybody just milling around, no power, walking around the streets in a daze. And I saw the GE boys. They were in some other hotel. I had my guys that were the divers and stuff. I remember the head GE guy that I'd worked for before, I didn't care for. He came up, what are you going to do, Kei? I said, well, you know what? I'm going out to the plant because I know they got power out there. They got diesel generators and they got a telephone out there at work, so I'm going out there. He kept his crew in town. I took my whole crew into work. That way I was able to call New Jersey and say, hey, we just had an earthquake. I don't know about the positioning of our new spent fuel racks. Those things had to be precisely in certain locations, and by the inches and everything. I still to this day do not think those things are in the right position, and there was no way we could move them again because we can't get the divers down there. We had to do a lot of fuel shuffles, moving them to different parts of the reactor vessel, and then put our divers down there. Pretty kind of hairy work. Well, they took a chance. They didn't go back into the 1800s. It's the same thing in Taiwan. I've got buddies of mine. They told me in the 1800s there was a big earthquake and tsunami that basically drowned the city of Keelung. Well, if that's the case, is Chinsan safe? Is Koshan safe down there in Taiwan? I'm sure the local activists are asking those questions of Taiwan Power Company.
And if you did have an earthquake like that drowned in a tsunami, that drowned a city where there were
the diesel generator are like at ground level or lower. Most of them are at the basement, I think, in nuclear power plants. But the one at Fukushima was down at ground level. And I don't know how high that rock wall was. I don't think it's as high as they claim it was supposedly, depending on, of course, low tide and high tide. I mean, I had a friend of mine the other day. His name's Stan Kinoshita. He was in Santa Clara. He had old friend I grew up when I was a little kid. He called me up. I didn't even know who it was. And the only thing he said was, "Those rock walls aren't as high as they said they were." Why didn't any of the engineers, whether they were Hitachi, Toshiba, or GE startup, take that into account? I mean, it was a loophole that bypassed all of the
safety precautions.
Yeah, all the safety precautions, all of those that work there. I haven't heard anything from GE about any of their engineers. They're all probably in their 70s now that were startup engineers were there. I haven't heard any comments from them. NBC interviewed me, and that's one of the first things I said to them. Hey, you guys are owned by GE NBC. You're going to slant the article their way, The guy was telling me, well, we sold, and, something like that. They didn't have as much influence, I guess, as before. Because they did sell part of their NBC share of the company, I believe. I don't know if I could ever force them to the table to talk, but I'm gonna be a thorn on their side.
Are you willing to be in a debate with them about how they run their plants in Japan?
Oh yeah, I'm willing to be in a debate. Yeah, I'd like to be in a debate about my layoff too. That's what I'd really like to get into. Yeah, were you telling the truth about my layoff? What skill sets was I missing? I'll show the whole organization. Say, you tell me, you compare me to every one of these guys. You tell me what skill sets I was lacking. I was lacking a skill set. You know what that was?
What?
Brown nosing. I refused to brown nose. They gave an equal opportunity to everybody to brown nose, but I didn't do it. And look who's left. Look who's running the show for a lot of GE's field service. A lot of these guys I trained, they don't all have 4-year degrees. That article that, what's his name, did in 2003, Rick Juergens, he worked for CC Times, he did all the reports at PG&E. When he wrote that article, I told him, you made one huge mistake, thinking just because you don't have a 4-year degree, you're going to get shoved off the side. I know a lot of people who are right off the street that didn't even have an engineering background that are out there running these jobs and working for GE. Shut your mouth. Hey, you're not Japanese. Like there's some Japanese guys I know and work in San Jose. They just love them to death. They stereotype you. What are you doing opening your mouth? Why don't you be like the rest of the Japanese guys? Just shut their mouth and do their job.
Get your money.
Yeah. You ain't stereotyping me. I'm an American. I was born here. I may be yellow, I may have slanted eyes, but I look through white man's eyes. That's been always my theme ever since a buddy of mine, and a good friend of mine, always told me that.
Well, you did say that there were other engineers, other people you work with in Japan who wanted to tell the truth and were retaliated against.
Yeah, but those are Japanese locals. I don't know who they are. I've just read about them. Yeah, I've read about them. I've heard about the guy with the vessel. Somebody said something about the one of the shroud jobs in Japan. I wasn't on it. That was a huge crack I heard in their shroud. They were told to hush about that, you know.
But it seems like TEPCO and the government are together, and they're really not interested in looking at.
Of course, that's a hand-in-glove relationship, too. It's no different than the U.S. and the NRC. People that worked in this business, they end up getting a job with the NRC. And you're going to have to be pro-nuke. You see any anti-nukes with the NRC? You know? The changes I'd like to see is let's balance it out. Give both points of views, and then let the public decide.
Well, it seems like the Obama administration, they want to use tax dollars to subsidize the building of more nuclear plants.
I say wrong to that. If Wall Street doesn't even want to invest in nuke plants, if you want to invest in nuke plants, you invest your money into it. Don't ask the government for help. Obama was bought out by even Hillary Clinton, I believe, brought it up that he was bought out by Illinois' nuclear power plants. You know, they used to be, Illinois is run mostly by nuclear power. Commonwealth Edison. I think a company called Exelon runs them now. And he kowtowed to them. You know, they gave him money for his campaign. And he's got Jeffrey Immelt to lead us back into, Jeffrey Immelt, CEO of GE. He appointed him to kind of restart our economy, or as the focal point in getting America back to what America should be. And he took over Jack Welch, and he's promoting GE nuclear power. I read he sent 1,000 engineers to help out with their problem. Jack Welch didn't care for nuclear power. He had a nickname, Jack Neutron Welch, we called him. We were getting business from pressurized PWRs. We had a business called fuel sipping that would detect leakers. We were expanding into the PWR plants. He squelched it. He didn't want anything to do with nuclear. He only visited San Jose once. I got a friend of mine, he knows Jack personally. He says Jack's a son of a bitch.
Well, he's certainly anti-labor.
He's anti-labor. He's a philandering guy. He's on his third wife. He was telling me about seeing him at parties, trying to pick up on other people's wives, dancing real close to them. But this guy I know, he lives in Indiana. He went right up to Jack and says, "You know what? That was my wife. I'd kick your ass," he told him right to his face. Jack knows him. Jack came to San Jose called my boss, my manager. He wanted a chance to meet Jack. And we were out playing golf. He sent one of his favorite texts with a golf cart looking for us on the golf course. "Jack wants to talk to you, Jack. There's my chance to get my knee pads in front of Jack Welch." And my friend Monty, his name is Silvio Monicone, came out of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, worked with Jack Welch when Jack was a big shot in the plastics division out of Pittsfield. But he told the guy, "He's my friend. Don't worry about it. Get out of here. Let us play golf. Go back to the office."
So, in San Jose? Is that where the
headquarters?
That's the headquarters.
Yeah, but when the vice president and the president were canned for the TEPCO scandal in 2002.
What scandal was that?
That was when I reported. In 2000 I wrote the letter, and then in 2002 of October, that's when they canned the president of TEPCO and the vice president. And all these people got a slap in the hand, and then they got little side advisor roles, and they changed out the head guy of MEDI. This guy that I dealt with from MEDI, he had no nuclear background. He was like some type of MEDI inspector at Narita Airport.
you?
I wrote a letter in June in 2000, telling them about the dryer incident. Not the TEPCO. I wrote to the inspection agency, telling how
the Japanese inspection agency.
Yeah, telling them the improper things that were going on. I brought up anything I can think of. Like I brought up when General Electric lost a set of Allen wrenches during an inspection at a power plant, and GE ended up couldn't find it. And the big boss was saying, "Oh, you better find it. We better find it. We're going to lose work with TEPCO. You got to go find it." He put such pressure on our manager. They decided, "Hey, let's go plant a set of Allen wrenches and then pretend we found them." GE did that.
General Electric did that.
General Electric did that. A guy named Bob Anderson was fired. A QC guy named Jack Phelps. And I, to this day, if I ever saw Jack, I says, "Jack, what the hell was going through your mind? Knowing you as a QC guy, it's just unfathomable that you would think like that. Plant a set of Allen wrenches and then say you found it? Crazy. Absolutely crazy." Jack Phelps, that guy, I just, to this day, can't believe it.
Well, the mentality that you should go do whatever the company wants. I mean,
well, that pressure was put on by GE's head guy. You know, when he made statements like, "Oh, you better find it, or we're not going to get any more work."
Oh, I see.
His power influenced these guys. Hey, let's come up with this plan. And those Allen wrenches were found in '97 when we were on the shroud job. The reason why they couldn't find it because they didn't have the skill sets. If you had me go down there and look in that core, I would have found them. I know that core inside and out. I know every little nook and cranny in a reactor vessel. I can handle a camera as well as anybody out there. And then I remember coming on shift. I had the late night shift. It was a D shift. And I came on shift in '97. They said, "Oh, by the way, they found the Allen wrenches. It was in the water gap." They put it in a can. It looked like it was been down there a long time and looked like cobwebs all over.
Was it radiated, or was it?
Well, it was probably it was probably a little bit irradiated. I don't know how much. It's in the water gap. The water gap is below the level of the fuel. It's just kind of a thermal expansion gap on the peripheral of the bottom of the lower core pipe, And they had it in a bucket hanging. I wish I'd have taken a picture of it. Darn it. Should have brought my camera, taken a picture, and put that in my book. Here's that.
So they made up things.
Oh,
they were pressured to make things up by General Electric management.
Yeah. The management put the pressure on these guys, and them two got fired, But GE, of course, never advertised it.
They keep it quiet.
Oh, any way they can. If you folks went and tried to talk to them, I've given lots of reporters names and email addresses. They're scared to even write back to me. I mean, I saw an email come the other day. Somebody was picking on Jane Fonda or something, and I seen a bunch of GE email addresses in it through mutual friends. So I wrote back to the friend of mine, plus I added a couple of the GE email addresses. One of the guys I know. I says, "Yeah, your next memorial is Fukushima Memorial. You bring good things to life." I says, "Lorraine Moret predicted it in May of 2004. Bingo! She hit it." Not one person replied back. They don't want it going to the server, and GE people see that communicating to me. Another buddy of mine lives with my brother. He works up there at GE Valves. He says, Kei, what are you doing sending emails?" Because he heard about it. I says, "I just giving them back some of their own medicine. You're picking on my girl, Jane Fonda." Reporter the other day from Wall Street Journal told me that somebody from GE Hitachi asked me if I knew this person's name, and I said I don't. And they go to Cancun, Mexico, and they do a seminar talking about how they've extended the life of these reactors from so many years to so many years. So he tries to contact General Electric, wanted to contact that person and ask, how do you come up with these, extension of life of the nuclear power plant? Where's your, what's your data? How do you come up with it? They wouldn't even talk to them. They asked them who you are. They're really PR right now in the nuclear business conscious. And they finally told them, well, we don't have anybody here that can speak to you.
But the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States is responsible for licensing these plants beyond their 40 years and into the future.
I believe so, and I don't know how they come up with all of, how they analyze all of that. I really don't. That's not my expertise.
What happens to the metals in these plants?
I think eventually they get, old, brittle, They're starting to find out, after so many years of, neutron bombardment or whatever, things wear out,
And replacing that is
expensive. Look, do you know any nuclear power plant in the United States that's replaced a shroud? None of them. They've done repairs on them. They put some type of clamps and whatever now. But none of them entirely replaced a shroud. Only the Japanese have. I don't think the utilities want to do something like that. The time that you're down and the amount of money that it costs. Take the fuel out and they'll put them in dry cask storage. Where they put the dry casks, I don't know. Most of the dry cask storages are on site. There has never been a permanent spent fuel the depository for spent fuel.
That's the problem. There's no place
they want Yucca Mountain to be one of those places, but Nevada don't want it. And according to my friend Loren, that's all faulty science. As far as Yucca Mountain, she was a Yucca Mountain whistleblower. What they do a lot of times, without really educating the local people about nuclear power plant, what they did a lot of times there was they give them money. They build gymnasiums. They build sports parks. This is the way they bribe their way into these areas. Giving money. And people, oh, you're giving money for this, or you're giving money for that. It's the same thing in Taiwan. When I was over there in Taiwan, one of their PR things was, all right, the local town of Chinsan, we're going to have, my subcontractor said, today we're going out, and we're going out to dinner. Well, what TPC does is they give money to the whole town, all these people live in the town. And I'll never forget that day. I said, okay, let's go. We go, I'm with my buddy. I must have ate at 20 people's homes. You ever gone out to dinner and ate at 20 different homes? You name the food, lobster, all kinds of good food, booze. You come in, sit down. I look at the food and I start eating, and then my buddy go, Kei, we got many more places to go. Stop eating. And I said, oh yeah, you're right. It was all kinds of good food, and I forgot we're going from one house to another. This is part of the Taiwan Power's PR thing, The kind of like develop harmony with the local residents.
Yeah, that would be a good movie.
Oh, it's crazy. We went from one place to another, man, and be chairs and stuff. Sit down, might take a bite of one thing, sip a beer. Okay, time to go to the next place. 20 homes in one night, I remember. All kinds of good food, too.
Seafood. Do we give money to them? Or they would,
well, TPC would give money to them. That didn't come out of their own pockets.
Taiwan Power Company.
Yeah, I'm sure they gave the money out. I haven't even covered in my book about the way they operate.
How do they operate?
They operate pretty crooked, too, you ask me. Well, they hide things. They'll say one thing at a meeting, and I'll be taking notes, and then they'll backstab you and say something else. There's a lot of under-the-table type stuff goes on there. I had to pay for forklift drivers. Can you imagine that? At a nuke plant to get my equipment off the trucks. They should be part of every plant in the U.S. Hey, you're coming in a project. They got people there employed to get a base salary. Oh, no. In your contract, you're supposed to have your own forklift. Yeah, how many companies bring their own forklift? I said, okay, fine, I'll get me a forklift. Oh, now you have to have a license to run the forklift. you know. Yeah. Sorry. My wife tells me all the time. Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, what a story. Well, this book should be something. Life as a nuclear inspector, nuclear worker. I mean, GE, what a company. That's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
what else were they doing in Taiwan? They used to make us wear lead vests when we had a hot job or something. And all that lead vest was doing was just covering up my film badge. Basically, you're falsifying exposure. It didn't cover your head. In health physics, you're taught your whole body goes from your blood-forming organs from the top of your head to maybe right below your knee. We'd wear these vests. I think they still do it to this day when they got a hot job. And I told them, I'm not wearing that vest. That's against the law. You never see somebody in the United States do that. You're falsifying exposure.
Right.
You know, and then some guy, I remember it was one job, we were watching them, the crane operators, put together the strong back that we needed to use to install what we call a low power range monitor. And I remember I was up there and I said something like, boy, what a dog and pony show. Well, you know, in our terms, that means a lot of confusion, right? Some kid goes, he called the Chinese a dog. And in Chinese, the dog is the lowest form of the animal. You call somebody a dog. So this head guy goes and pulls my badge. And now GE wants me to write a letter apologizing. I says, I don't want to apologize. The guy doesn't understand English. He's interpreting something that is not true. I'm married to a Taiwanese lady. Why would I want to call them dogs, you know? That pissed me off, man. I'll never forget that. Pulled my badge. And then the site manager for GE made me write this letter apologizing, and I really didn't want to write it because it wasn't true. And to show you how dirty TPC is. Okay, after that, they remember that. So here we go. January of 1999. I'm done with GE. I used up all my weeks. They gave me vacation. Every week I worked for them, even though I got laid off April 98. 99, I fly back to New Jersey, and I go to the main office. And I had interviewed with the vice president at the airport, and he said something about, you guys are special breed. In other words, they've tried their own native Indian engineers running jobs at site, and they found out it doesn't work. They don't know how to handle utility people. They might have all the education in the world, but they couldn't handle that. But when I went back there, I'll never forget it. I'm interviewing with the vice president, and he goes down to his bottom drawer of his desk, and he pulls out this letter, and he hands it to me, and I'm going, whoa! The head guy made his second in command guy write a letter about me and the problem they had with me with this HP over this dog incident. I sat there and went, oh man, now I know how the real world works. Just any way to backstab you, that this was their concern when they heard that they were going to make me the site project manager for the replacement of the high density racks. So I kind of smiled and laughed, and I told the boss exactly what happened. I just told him the truth of this story. But I told myself, wow, what a bunch of cutthroat people, And then when I came out there, one of the first persons I dealt with was a lady. She handles everything for GE. I still got that email. She says, oh, okay, they are happy to see you running the job. You know this guy, you know that guy. They're happy to see you. You need any help, even though she works for GE. You need any help, let me know. I'll take care of anything for you, Good to see you coming back, things like that. Yeah. And then I bumped into that guy. He was second in command, and then they made him in command. They made him top boss. Mm-hmm. And I remember when when you work for TPC, you're not allowed to go out with contractors into nightclubs and things like that. They have rules like that. My wife used to work for TPC. But these guys would still go out. I remember going out to shoot nightclubs and girls there and everything, and I brought that up to him. I says, hey, you wrote that letter on me. And he took it back. He said, no, you're a good guy. You're a good guy. No, he did. And I said, no, and I didn't point the finger. I says, I know Mr. Ho made you write that, you know. It was the top guy above him made him write it because Mr. Ho's English wasn't as good as this other guy's, you know. You're a good man and everything. And I didn't know that he was best friends of my contractor.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And my friend, the contractor, he works like an assistant HP at the plant. And one of the things he was telling me, he says, Kei, there's been some people dying of some young guys of some weird cancers. And I says, you know, maybe radiation is as safe as people think it is, I told him. And we were going back into Taipei for dinner, and he says, Kei, don't bring that up with Michael Chang. Michael is the head of the division of the HP section at Chinsan, both units. I said, don't worry, I won't bring it up. But I said, thanks for letting me know, you know. I can't say, yes, that person died of radiation. Yeah, but I mean, when he tells me it's puzzling him, you know, normal, healthy people dying at a young age, maybe radiation affects their genes differently. My general feeling was the Japanese were very diligent about training. They like training. Training is really something they emphasize. Now, and they have mock-ups. They like to do mock-ups because of the exposures. You know, they usually come in with a whole stream of workers, and each person would do their share or pick up their exposure. Boom, next guy come in. You know, they used more workers. I think that's why sometimes they used us for the jobs instead of their own workers, because it took more manpower on their end because of their limits. For Toshiba, I've read about where they recruit them out of the slums, the Yakuza.
Osaka, the labor markets.
Yeah, they probably go there to pick them up. I don't know, you know, what they get paid, what their per diem is. Yeah. I do know a lot of Japanese workers that I met for tax purposes and stuff. Each person, even though let's say they work for this company, they're their own company. They do that for tax purposes. It's like being self-employed. Like you want to be self-employed. Independent contractor.
Everybody's an independent contractor.
They're all working together. They all work for some company, but they're all independent contractors. Because taxes are so high in Japan, this allows each independent contractor to write off.
The media.
No, I'm not surprised because they're controlling. They you know, they have a way of controlling things. They don't. You know, they don't want to, you know, expose their name. I'm going to work hard to get their name out there.
So that slogan, the good things GE brings you, they don't want to talk about the good things at Fukushima.
Yeah, no. They hate that when you say something like that. In October 2003, I went over there, and Tokyo Broadcasting Systems and JNN did the evening news and the late night news. They gave me maybe 15 minutes of time on the news. I'm going to get it out there so everybody, he says, has anybody in the West seen it? I says, nope. And that's why I want it out there so everybody can see it. And I'm wrong. When you see this interview, I'm wrong. I said something to the fact, I was just looking at it the other day. I said something like, oh, TEPCO won't be doing this anymore. They'll have to clean up their act. And now I look back, they didn't clean up their act. Things have happened since 2003. They were still covering up stuff. You can go on Wikipedia and see some of the stuff. Yeah, continuing. So here I'm thinking idealistic, you know. And I was a little bit influenced by that because my friend, he had connections to get me on television and meet the governor. I met the governor of Fukushima too. Mm-hmm. He was a 6-time elected governor. And after that scandal, the government went after him. because he's kind of stopped the development of the MOX fuel. That was the British fuel. It's got plutonium in it or something like that. One of the Fuku plants had it. And they went after him. It's typical retaliation. So they went looking for some, his brother was involved with some bid rigging or something, or some dam or something, and they exposed him, and next thing you know, he wasn't the governor of Fukushima. So six-time elected governor.
So retaliation.
Retaliation.
For standing up for protection of people in
Fukushima. Yeah, for going against nuclear power. So that's why anytime you see a statement like New York Times, there's a friend of mine asked me, he says, Kei, I'm surprised you said you support nuclear power, but I'd like to see more transparency. So I got to kind of explain that to him. He said that's kind of strange since you're Lorenzo against nuclear power. So I've got to tell him, look, we are friends. That doesn't mean we agree on every little thing. We're all human beings. We all have our own thoughts. Exactly. You think my brother agrees with me? Think my sister agrees with me? Both of them told me don't write that letter back in June of 2000. I told both of them, F you, I'm writing it. I'm not listening to you guys. I have my own mind. That's right. That's right. Now, that's the beauty of America. Speaking of workers, we had a worker. His name was Charlie Miller. Back in early 80s, he went on the road with us, and he really wasn't in condition to do any work. But he died in 87, and I begged for this guy's life. I told my supervisor, he's going to die. He's going to die on the road. You put him on my shift. He's going to die in the reactor vessel. We're going to have to carry him out. It's going to be a public relations nightmare. Please, please let him live. He's got enough money. You can give him an early retirement. 56 years old. Please. I begged him. Wouldn't listen to him. And it wasn't only me. Well, in 1987, we went to a plant called LaSalle out in, I think it was 87. And he never made it into the reactor vessel. We went to a mask respiratory training class. He got to the top of the stairs, and he had a massive heart attack. Died on the spot. What a waste. And GE, his wife, had to go to court to collect the proper amount of life insurance because he died on the job. They weren't going to pay it. And she had to go get a law firm to make GE pay what was rightfully, theirs for his death on the job.
So he gave his life for this company, and
well, he thought if he stayed on the road, he could keep from getting laid off, being unapplied. But I saw his face at the airport. I says, "Oh, this is bad news. We just saw him about pass out on a job before that. Some of these guys have to work in some brutal conditions. 2 pairs of coveralls, plastics, a face mask, working with highly contaminated material. I mean, the poor guy died almost on this job. And my boss, and a friend of mine, he was running that project, told our manager, hey, please, get Charlie off. Charlie's going to die. And when he died, his son tried to get up to Vallecillas. I think his son wanted to kill him. He wanted to go up there and just kill him. The guards stopped him from getting on site. And then when my manager died, he died of some nasty esophagus cancer I think he got from being a supervisor of the plutonium lab. We used to have a plutonium lab at Vallecillas. I mean, when he died, I didn't go to his funeral. I mean, why should I care about you? You don't care about others. But I worked with old-timers at the test reactor, and they came from Hanford, back in the old testing days, when they were developing the bomb. And some of these guys died of some nasty cancers. Now, I don't want to say it was directly related to their work, but I think there's a good chance it was related to the work,
Were they compensated for the
I don't know. There was a guy named Chuck Whittemore, I remember. He nasty cancer, And that's one of the things I think the nuclear workers deserve a little more health protection, A lot of these temporary workers, they don't have any health plan. I know GE has 220 right now reactor service technicians. A lot of them are on retainers. Some have some kind of health benefit, but most of them don't. And that's what really bummed me out is I had like 21 years. I wanted to get 25 years and maybe 54, 55 and get out. At 25 years, they take care of half your health benefits. And being a nuclear worker, being somebody that had over more REM than my age, being denied working at some power plants, and the increasing knowledge of the effects of radiation to our immune systems, had me worried a little bit. It's always in the back of my mind. Is it really harmful or not? I've got, like I said, I've talked to notable scientists. They say it is. Some say it's no more than being in an airplane, no more than smoking a cigarette, no more being outside in the sun. I mean, they teach you all that stuff when you go to nuke plants. They have what they call general education training, GET training,
But the idea that you don't have health care.
Well, I have it now through my wife,
but
fortunately.
But I'm talking about national health care. If your wife wasn't covered, basically, you'd have to try to buy it.
Yeah.
And that's an impossible situation.
Especially if you got something wrong with you, they just deny you nowadays.
That's right.
Right? I mean, I think, in general, as far as the labor movement, you guys are part of the labor movement, I think a lot of the nuclear workers deserve some type of health coverage just for working in the business.
That's right.
I don't think any of the companies are going to go for it.
GE would probably fight that.
Definitely fight that.
That would be too expensive.
Look, my boss told me, many times I've heard him say that, you're just a body to me. At least he told me the truth. You are just a body.
He was honest.
We used to run a lot of hot jobs in the old days, and we used the GE service shop. I don't know if you heard of the GE service shop. Used to be one in Oakland, Denver. They were all over the place. We used those guys for the hot jobs. We'd bring them overseas or wherever and burn them out and send them home.
And what happened to them?
Well, they had jobs at home, so they can be used temporarily, burn out, and then go home and they work on whatever, locomotives or whatever their type of business is. But they were bodies to be used for high exposure jobs. But I have what they call, it was called a Foam 4. Show every plant you worked at, what exposure you picked up. And in fact, they used to give you the paperwork of your whole body counts. Our guys, when we used to come into some plants, when we do whole body counts, they'd see these peaks of cobalt or whatever we had, manganese, cesium. Because a lot of times I've had internal depositions myself. I've been in work situations where they said, hey, you got to go down there and work. We got this little window of getting this job done. I mean, they'll scream murder when you get contaminated, but when there was a certain job, like I remember in Taiwan once, we got to get this job done. I mean, I came out of there and into the monitor, I set off all the alarms. I don't know how many showers I've taken, how many nasal smears they've taken, and cobalt stays in your body like 5.2 years. Half-life is 5.2 years, so half of it goes after 5.2 years. I believe now if I took a whole body count, I think I'd be totally clean, other than your natural peak of potassium. We have potassium bodies, so potassium would show up on a whole body counter. But that's naturally in your body. We used to get blood tests all the time. The Japanese were really into blood tests. A lot of these power plants, I took blood tests maybe twice or 3 times a year. And I used to joke with the doctor. I says, hey, doc, we're the guinea pigs of the nuke business, aren't we? He just slightly chuckled. Of course, he's not going to say, yeah, you are the guinea pigs.